We look at this through the lens of the church year instead of the lens of Scripture. In the Episcopal Church, we talk about the three-legged stool. When we have a dilemma of any sort, especially a moral dilemma, we consult three equally weighted sources: Scripture, tradition, and reason, or experience. There's a funny category there, which includes science and our lived experience. It's us. It's the things that humanity, a beautiful created humanity, bring to the conversation. And Scripture, we have already determined, is not really helping us here. It doesn't tell us Christ was a king, and its relationship with the other kings is a bit fraught. Our tradition, however, places this feast at the very end of the year. Today is our New Year's Eve. Our church calendar works on a different clock than the regular calendar. Next Sunday is the first Sunday of Advent, the season of Mary's pregnancy that leads up to Christmas and Jesus' birth, and that's the beginning of our year, the beginning of Christ's life. So this is our closeout. This is our party. And it's a time for reflection, right? This is what we do whenever the year switches over. Sometimes we look at the past year and think, thank God I never have to do that year over. We can just leave it. It is done. Sometimes we can look at the past year and simply sit in awe of the beauty and the riches that it brought us. Yeah, which sometimes includes a baby. Jesus is doing that process with Pilate. He's about to die. He's going to get a really big dose of closure, and he has a relatively intense new leaf coming in the form of the resurrection. And yet, he still has time to needle the big Roman guy waxing philosophical about his life. In the verse after the gospel reading we hear this morning, Pilate says, but what is truth? You can imagine Pilate as that one guy who just won't let it go in your philosophy class. In the middle of this shift, that is the close and the reflection, Jesus is clear about what he belongs to. He belongs to a kingdom. The kingdom doesn't belong to him. He belongs to it. This is a kingdom that he's been talking to death, literally, for the past 3 years. A kingdom that has at its core welcome of the stranger, food for the hungry, and care for the sick. At this moment, this precipice for us, this shift of years, are we clear about what we belong to? Perhaps a visual aid will help. I would like you to do something. Liz is going to come through the aisles, and bear with me, I've never done something like this in a sermon before, and I may never again, but please indulge me. This might seem silly, but it is New Year's Eve, and New Year's Eve is the time to get a little goofy. Most of us who do not ordinarily wear party hats will wear a party hat on New Year's Eve. So I'd invite you that once you get them, to put your crown on. You're not going to do this alone. I'm going to look silly with you. So take a minute. Don't you look nice? This is one of the times I wish I carried my cell phone with me in the pulpit so I could take a picture of you. Once you have your crown on your head, this somewhat silly expression. Jerry, did you get? Okay, so good. See, everybody's so good here. This physical expression of the royalty we share with Christ. I'd like you to settle into your body for a minute. And think about the 2.2 billion other Christians on the planet who you are linked to by virtue of this crown. People with whom we share bread and wine and stories. I'd invite us to think about the acts of kindness that have been done for us in our own lives, even when we didn't deserve them. Maybe especially when we didn't deserve them. I'd invite us to think about a moment when we saw a possibility of hope in a broken world, a kind of world that is reconciled and giving instead of screaming and withholding. I'd invite us to think about a world where there is no question that refugees would be welcomed and embraced with great love and affection. Or maybe even a world where there are no refugees, where no one has to run away. I'd invite us to think about the first time we knew that we had a real friend. I'd invite us to think about what we would be willing to die for. The people that we would offer our lives for. I'd invite you to think about the particular food that your parents would make for you when you were sick, when you were little. That's our kingdom. That's where we belong. From the very small to the very large, these dots connected make up the matrix of this world, this kingdom that both is, that we've experienced and seen, and is not yet. We belong to this thing and these people and these stories, to this possibility. Both the weight of the crown, the responsibility it carries to call this new world into being and to be laboring for it, and the beauty of the crown placed on you at your baptism. Both of them are ours. We can take off our crowns today. But I would invite us to think about them while we're at work, while we're at home with our family, while driving or on the bus. this kingdom, living, hovering just under the world as we see it. Happy New Year's Eve.